3, 2. Oh, never mind. We're live.
It's already You tried the 3, 2, 1, but it was already done. It was already live. So
that wasn't
hey
a
there, hi
countdown
there,
or
hello there
anything.
out there in spray wash land. Tonight we're going to talk about sales. We're going to talk about hiring a salesperson, how and when to hire a salesperson, and all that. So our special guest with us tonight is, I'm going to try to see if I get this right off the bat. I am going to get it right. He's right there.
There you go.
Trevor Shamblin. Trevor is out of, if you don't know who Trevor is out of California. Trevor also has a line of soap and sells equipment and all kinds of stuff and all that kind of fun stuff. So, Trevor, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get rolling.
Let's see. I got into the industry about 8 years ago. Quit my job, took all my savings, everything, put it in my business, and we were profitable since day one. We've done pretty well since day one. I started off by myself, residential, and then got more and more into commercial and industrial. And now we're about 60-40 commercial and industrial, with residential being the 40%. But yeah, we're out in California where it's really, really tough to do business. But if you learn how to utilize all the madness out here, it actually can work to your benefit. Mm-hmm. But there is a learning process where you're going to have a lot of frustrations.
Yeah.
But once you get the hang of it,
you're also a man of many talents. Really a pure water expert. And I mean, you're looking at some of the comments over there. Oh. We do have some awesome pictures together. But you're some of the RODI systems that you designed, and I know we sell those at Power Wash Store as well. They're really amazing systems. And you are kind of our resident designer now for pure water stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I went. I worked with Paul, owner of the Power Wash Store, for a little while. He contacted me and wanted to kind of work with me about putting some systems together, getting some pole designs done. And I flew out and was out there for like a week and designed a couple systems, and we got them ready for the huge convention. And then the poles actually just came in a few days ago. So we've got the last ditch of prototypes, and I think they're pretty much ready to go into production here pretty soon. So, but I'm pretty happy with them. And Paul got one of the samples the other day, and he really liked them. So I think they should be hitting the market here pretty soon.
I did that video of that skid that I picked up yesterday, and had somebody message me who's a washer, and he was a window cleaner to start with, and he saw on the video the system that you had designed, and he was like, "Oh my God, that is so sick!" And he wanted to price out the whole skid exactly like that. We had, because he saw the benefit of having that pure water, sitting there on the side and really tucked out of the way and integrated into everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then we had that one, and then we had another one, which is the high flow. It'll produce up to 10 gallons a minute of purified water. Mm-hmm. Wow. And kind of what the idea of that is for fleet washers to be able to make water on site without having to go back and forth between their shop and refill, which will increase their service area that they can service, cut down on time. And they don't have to have, a shop dedicated just to producing water, because they can produce up to 10 gallons a minute, on site mobily. The other thing, I don't know if you saw one of the videos of they were using a drone and using the pure water system to power the drone. They were washing buildings with purified water. That was a pretty cool thing to see.
Well, the company that bought ours, Crystal Clean, one of their secrets, I guess can give this away, but they have literally a Connex, a half of a semi truck sized pure water machine, and they literally pull the trucks up under it, pull the chain, and dump 500 gallons per truck in the trucks in the morning, and roll out. And because whenever you're washing with the pure water, it makes all the difference in the world on stuff. And I remember whenever I bought from another company you were affiliated in, I bought that little beast, and you were telling me how good it was, and I bought that, and it changed our life as far as because we had some Tucker carts and little things that rolled around, and some 4-stage systems that could carry around, and they were always such a they worked. They did exactly what they were supposed to do.
They were clunky.
They fit.
They were
those
to use.
Yeah, they fit it. I mean, those systems fit a niche.
Right.
They have a very, they're for window cleaning, 2 stories, 3 stories at the most. They're not super efficient. They're hard to set up. You got to lug them around. It's just not efficient for what we do.
Yeah.
So the system like you bought is utilized to use multiple people. Like you can run 4 poles off the one that you have.
And whenever that got hooked into the truck, and it was literally as easy as turning a valve and flipping a switch to have, and the hoses were already plumbed in, it made all the difference in the world to everybody as far as now, cleaning up windows, and we could even roll up, the hose at the end. I mean, the guys were just, they were happy to go and then do windows whenever we made it easy for our technicians to do windows, and not lugging around a 4-stage filter with filters falling off of it, or, a cart that wanted to tip over and all that crap. So,
no, the old days of that are behind us, luckily.
Yeah.
Getting further and further behind, hopefully.
Yep.
As things progress and change, and just all the advancements that are happening in the industry to begin with. So
I mean, there's still a place for those style of carts, but I mean, the thing about water-fed pole window cleaning is that for a long time there really was no innovation. You had 8 different companies making a cart that all looked exactly the same. There was maybe a color difference, or this one's got slightly different wheels than this one, but for the most part they were all copies of each other.
Trigger wheel.
And nobody had really stepped up and said, this could be better. This could be more efficient. This could be easier to use. Why wasn't anybody doing it? So, we finally got to the point where there's options out there. You can have a better performing system.
Well, and it's amazing. And boy, you want to talk about just down a rabbit hole, but having
topic already.
Oh, you may have called up about salespeople.
Well, at least we started off topic.
Yeah,
so we started from the get-go.
We'll be getting to the sales stuff in a minute, guys. Give us just a minute.
Yeah.
Having it plugged in and plumbed in, and where it's just easier to use, and the stuff doesn't get damaged as much. And I mean, and whenever you've got 300 feet of hose on a reel that just reels up so easily, you just realize the futility of doing this crap manually. And it's just, it's amazing. And like I said earlier, just your techs are like, where it used to be drudgery. Okay, let me go set the cart out, and then when they got done with the cart, they throw it in the back of the truck. It's sloshing water everywhere. If another crew member has to ride in the back of the truck, in the quad cab, he's going to be covered in water. And it just made it so easy and so efficient, and like I tell customers that come into the power wash store, when we start talking about soft washing, really there's nothing in this whole place that I can't do with a pump up sprayer. And every one of these iterations of skids and pumps and tools and stuff you see here is a way to improve on a pump up sprayer.
Everything
and kind of the same way now with the window cleaning, where we're seeing improvements in the pure water to make it faster, better, and work easier.
Faster, better, easier.
Yeah, because I mean, pure water window cleaning started off as a thing where, it's a safety thing, keeps people on the ground. And the other thing is that you can teach somebody to do pretty good window cleaning in about, 15 to 30 minutes. Like, you can take somebody that's never had any experience with window cleaning and put them in a position to get pretty good results in about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that with traditional. Like, you just can't. Like, realistically, to have an employee master traditional window cleaning, it's going to take time. You're going to have to invest a lot of time in that individual, and there's no guarantee that they're not going to just leave, a month later or a day later, and then what do you have?
No guarantee.
That's actually a good segue into what we're supposed to be talking about, which is the sales side of it. Because when you and I were talking earlier, Trevor, you were talking about, you had hired a salesperson, and one of the issues that they didn't know how to do the work. Where here, like you're talking about in water-fed pole cleaning, it's pretty, I'm going to say, simplistic. And so it would be easier per se to price out than it would. So it'd be easier to hire a salesperson to do water-fed pole cleaning, where you can say, hey, basically this is it. There's not that much to it, versus hand squeegeeing and that sort of thing. So on the sales side, would you agree then that's kind of the issue that you have in hiring a salesperson for that?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty true, especially when you get into commercial stuff, where like some jobs you would either have to get a lift, or maybe it was a really awkward place where you have to rappel or set up scaffolding or something. You're going to eliminate most of those situations with a water fed, unless it's positioned in just a crazy awkward spot. But usually you can find a position where you can reach it, or it's beyond the reach of a pole system. 65 feet is usually about the max that most people, I think, could achieve efficiently. I mean, I've known some people that have gone up to 75, 80 feet. But I wouldn't recommend that for many situations. That's a pretty high bar to set. But
it's pretty taxing on you.
Oh yeah, it's physically. That's the other thing, is that a guy will do a 2-story or a 3-story building. Oh yeah, I hit the whole side of the building one swipe, and then they'll do they'll pick up a 5 or 6-story building, and they don't realize working a pole that high is very taxing on your body, and you're going to have to take some breaks and trying to position that pole and keep a hold of it. Like, it's some work, but it's work. But so it's going to save you a lot of money, and it's going to keep you on the ground.
If we can, let's get off the water-fed pole stuff, and let's head on over to the sales stuff, and give everybody what they came here for, kind of thing. Although, here's the problem with what we do. Sometimes, we get onto a topic like this. It's a good topic. It's something great to talk about. And I mean, we could go on for hours and hours about it.
I do have to add this in there, but we've actually got pictures of Daniel Howerton. He has rappelled with the water-fed pole, which is another.
I thought he was joking when he put that up there.
No, he's done that. Very effective.
No, we sold some systems to a company in New Zealand, and their whole thing was they were going to be rappelling down buildings, and then they were going to be water-fed poling the entire building. Right. So they had the systems on the roof, and they wanted to use water-fed pole to clean the windows, because they were having such a hard time trying to find skilled window cleaners that would stick around. They were like,
faster, it's easier, I mean, your water-fed pole is so much more forgiving. And Daniel's had amazing. I always thought he was crazy as hell when he first told me about it, and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense on doing that. All right, so we'll take Mitch and we'll segue in here. So, how do I hire a sales guy and get him to stick around? Pay structure, tips or tricks for her/him.
So this is kind of the reason that I asked Trevor to come on tonight. So Trevor has hired, you said, I think 3 salespeople.
I've tried, 3 salespeople.
They didn't work out. What's that?
Yeah, I tried 3 salespeople. They didn't work out.
And they didn't work out. So I kind of wanted to go down that rabbit hole a little bit as to the structure that you went into for hiring them, and then the problems that you had, and some of the because when we were talking, you brought up some interesting points and things that I think in our industry we need to talk about when we're looking at hiring salespeople. So let's start off with this, Trevor. At what point did you decide that you should hire a salesperson?
It was a couple years ago. when I was contemplating getting off the truck and doing sales, but I didn't feel comfortable enough being off the truck. So I thought it'd be easier for me to have a salesperson so I could stay on the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, it wasn't a great, for a long-term business plan, it's not smart. At the time, because I really wanted to have control over what was happening on the truck, made me feel like it was a good idea when really it wasn't.
So
I
you
should
realize
have been.
it's better that you be off the truck and actually outrunning sales at that point.
Yeah, if you're in the spot where like you need one salesperson in order to, keep a truck or two or three running, then you being the salesperson is probably the better idea.
Right.
And then at some point you're going to have to step back from sales, or at least add on somebody else to do sales, because you're not going to be able to do it all on your own. It's just not going to happen.
So let's start with this question. So, and first of all, I want to throw out there again, y'all hit the like buttons and all that kind of stuff, and please share this out, help us out a little bit there. But for me, the question is, at what point do we hire at what dollar point do you hire a salesperson? At what truck point do you hire a sales? These are the questions that we're always asking ourselves. And for me, I preferred to, like you did, step off the truck. You started off hiring somebody while you're on the truck. I preferred to go ahead and let me step off the truck, and I'll do all the sales and hire somebody to run the truck for me. So for me, when do you hire a salesperson? I think, and Ray, I'd love to get your input on this as well. But for me, I think when you hire a salesperson is 100% up to what your business plan and what your business goal is, because you can start off with one truck and have a salesperson selling for that truck if you don't know how to sell. Mm-hmm. Or you can, you can get your truck running, and then hire somebody to replace you, and then you go off and do sales, and then you bring on another truck and you're doing sales. I can go out and I can accomplish the goal of selling for, basically 3 to 4 trucks, but I'm going crazy at that point. That's where I felt like, okay, I really need somebody else, because I'm going crazy here trying to sell for 3 and 4 trucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, when I first figured out that I needed to hire a salesperson was when I was on the truck and doing sales, and I wasn't able to. I was booking stuff like crazy, but I wasn't able to keep the truck working 5 days a week and do sales. So like we were working like 3 days a week, and then I was doing sales for 2 days, or 4 on one. Or with the busy season was crazy, I'd be working 5, and then on the weekends I was out doing estimates, and I was like, this just can't continue.
Right. That's why many of us have the peaks and valleys and valleys like that.
Oh yeah.
Sell. Now I go and do the work, so my sales drop off. Now I'm out of work, so I sell. Then I do the work and it drops off. Yeah, and
it makes everything super inconsistent. And if you're trying to keep employees happy, like most employees want to work consistently. They want a consistent paycheck. They want between 38 to 40 hours a week every week, or they want more. But if you're doing sales that way, their checks are going to be all over the place. They're not going to be happy. So you're going to be putting a lot of time and energy into training these people. Yep. They're going to be upset. They're going to leave you. And you're either going to lose them entirely, or you're going to lose them and they're going to take what you've taught them, and then they're going to become your competition down the street.
That's so, you never want, people. And I've heard this from several different employees, and you would think, oh man, they're loving the overtime. And sometimes they do love the overtime, but what they don't like is when they're then at 20 hours a week, right, and then 60, 65 hours the next week on there, because the 20 hours has really kicked their ass on the paycheck. Because, you're talking about guys that are living on budgets and not necessarily entrepreneurs like we are. And so whenever you really did, and so we're of the mindset of, but look how much overtime you made this week. But we don't sit there and think that these are also guys that might be very budgeting to the last $10 they have of this week, $150 is going to go towards rent. $35 is going towards cable, $70 is going towards food. And whenever we upset those apple carts with them, all the overtime in the world doesn't necessarily help.
So I want to go back to the comments real quick, and I want to address two of them. First, I want to start here where Michael J had said, as soon as I can, I want to be a full-time salesperson or a salesman. However, a real seasoned trained salesman is invaluable. This is one of the areas where I think that when Trevor and I were talking, I thought was a very valid point to this. So, Trevor, you hired somebody that was very seasoned, and what was his comments shortly after hiring on?
His comments after we went out on a couple estimates and he watched what I was doing and listened to me speak with the customers and answer questions and explain the process and all these things that are really super important in closing sales. Like, you can go out there and have the best pricing in the world, the fanciest shirts and all that other crap. But if you can't explain the service to the customer, like why they need it and make them understand it and be comfortable with it, you're not going to be able to make sales. You're just not.
Or you're going to be outsold by the guy that can do that.
Yeah. So if you have a salesperson that's doing sales for you and you have a customer that's like, how often do I need to have my roof done? And they just stare at them with a blank stare because they have no idea. Or they ask, what's on my roof? Oh, well, that's gross stuff. Okay, well, what is it? Why is it on there? Like, your salesperson needs to know what you're cleaning, why you're cleaning it, why you don't want to do, like, you don't want to pressure wash the roof. And they have to know more than just, you shouldn't pressure wash a roof. Okay, well, why? Oh, well, because my boss told me we're not supposed to.
And what's the data on that? I don't
know. Yeah, they need to understand what they're talking about. And it's very apparent when they don't know what they're talking about and people start asking questions.
But you can lose sales.
Yeah. And I mean, you can tell a sales guy, hey, when they ask this is what you say. But if they start asking particulars about it and you don't really understand it, it's going to come across very apparently that you really don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to make a point on that, Trevor. So how long was that person with you?
He was with me for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Riding with me.
Do you happen to know what the some of the statistics are as far as a salesperson and when they actually get it with almost virtually any type of business? A good salesperson.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Right? I don't know.
The average is about from all the reading and research that I did is actually about 10 months. Okay. And so the reason I feel like that's super important is because I think in a case like that, even though he doesn't know that process, and look, if you get rid of everybody because your guy, he just like, hey, I'm not going to get this. And so maybe I need to move on. But you have to plan for the long term. If you're hiring a salesperson, you have to understand that they're not going to know this industry unless they come from this industry. And it's going to take some time. And realistically speaking, I think 6 to 10 months is a fair deal to where they really understand, okay, these are the nuances of it. But you also have to teach them along the way why this pricing isn't working or what happened. And I'll give you a great example of that. I just had a window job done on one of our properties, and the salesman came out and he didn't necessarily recognize that there's two different ways that the windows were installed. So I think he priced everything based on one side, but not on the other side. My point to this is that he's been with the company for about 4 years, I think. These are things that he should have known after 4 years. You see? Right. So it's up to you as the business owner to say, okay, here's where we should have done things a little bit differently. And this is why the price is different, And to me, maybe another way, because as we get in and talk about pricing a little bit, there's pricing issues that are going to come up because of that. So maybe the job doesn't make money or doesn't lose money. And most sales guys are paid off of the gross, not off of the net. And so, you know, sometimes you might have to adjust based on, hey, here's an error, but is it yours, or is it your error or their error?
Yeah, I think when it comes to salespeople in situations like that, I think it's really important that the communication to the salesperson about how the job went is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Like if, for instance, what happened in your situation, he might have done that on multiple jobs for the entire 4 years
and had no idea.
And had no idea. So if that's something that's happened, it's not really his fault.
Right, exactly.
He doesn't know. So like the owner or whoever, the service guy who's doing the installation, they need to communicate with him and say, hey, this was messed up. It wasn't, you know, the pricing was wrong because this. So we need to figure out how to not make this happen again.
Exactly.
Like when I was setting up the sales structure for pay, like one of the things was you're not making X amount of percent off of what the job was estimated at. You're getting paid off of what we end up making from it. So like if you sell a job for $2,500 and then, you know, you go on to the next sales thing and then the crew shows up, they do the house wash or whatever for $2,500 and they end up burning a plant that has to be replaced. That's $200. Okay. Well, now you get paid off for $2,300.
So in a way, that's not fair to the sales guy though.
I mean, it isn't. But part of that is his salespeople are a representation of his sales. So like he needs to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do.
But the sales guy, so you and I would have probably a disagreement on that, because for me, the sales guy should still get paid his commission because he sold the job. Just because the technician screwed up shouldn't necessarily affect the pay structure of the sales.
I mean, possibly, or if there's something else where the customer isn't happy and the salesman just kind of drops the ball and doesn't take care of it, and then you end up having to discount it in order to make them happy.
Yes.
Like there needs to be accountability for the salesperson after the sale is made.
Absolutely.
And I know that like we just want to make that sale and then look on to the next opportunity and then put 100% into that. And I think a lot of us fall into that where we're just putting 100% into the next hurdle and the next hurdle and the next hurdle. And we never look back to see if, hey, did we handle that correctly?
Exactly.
Or do we need to reevaluate what we have done to make, the future better?
So let me.
I've been guilty of that myself.
Oh, right.
Many times. It's taken me a long time to figure out, like, I need to start looking at, in the past and figuring out, did I do that correctly? Did I leave money on the table? Did I put myself in a position to not, excel where I should have?
So let me take this back, because I think this is a good segue into a little bit of paying your sales guy and all that, and talking. So I want to go back to another comment, which was, sorry, Ray, I'm
no, you're good. You're good.
Here. This one here, where it's Facebook user, not sure who that is. Might be Chad. Chad, if you're making comments, buddy, we're not seeing it, just so you know. He says, I feel I'm giving my sales guy too good of a deal. How do I bring it down without losing him? So first of all, on that, going into the pricing of or what you're paying your sales guy, right? You feel like you're paying him too much. You kind of got to look at that, because are you? If your sales guy should be making really good money, honestly, everybody should be making good money. But I've seen this too many times in the past where they say, man, commercial versus residential, we're going to pay you, 10% on residential and 5% on commercial, because commercial is at a higher dollar point. Well, why would you limit if whoever this is, if you're making money off of this guy's sales, are you paying him too much? No. You need to increase your production staff to be able to keep up with this person's sales. So if they're doing a good job at sales, why punish them for that unless you're not making money off of that? If you're not making money because of how he's selling, that's a whole different issue and a whole different thing that we need to talk about, right?
Yeah. I think if you talk to any seasoned salesperson that's been in the game long enough, and you ask them, like, what's the most frustrating part about sales when they're working for a company, is that they are the opposite of rewarded when they do well. They're like, oh, you make 10% on sales. Oh, up until this amount. Oh, and then we back you down to 9%. And then you hit this next year, we back you down to 8%. And eventually you're working for 5% because you've done so well. Mm-hmm. It just, to me, it sounds crazy. Like if you have one salesman that's doing $1 million for you a year, why would you want to slow him down?
No, yeah.
Just so you can save yourself a couple bucks.
You should have plateaus on there, and it's like, okay, if you go from, you're up to 10% up to $1 million, and we're going to bump you up retroactively to 12% over $1 million. I mean, it is really how that should be on that, not the other way around. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And let me toss in, a couple of things. I've got a very good friend here in Florida, and I think in retrospect, I had said 20 in our pregame, but he was telling me a while back that I think it was 15%, but he was giving her 15% on everything. And then he realized that he was really overpaying that. But what he did, instead of backing it back, he also realized she was really good at taking these customers from the cradle to the grave. That's something else that's real important we need to focus on here too, with the salesperson, with the opportunity owner, and let's call it that. But so he took and instead of just paying her a 15% commission, he wound up making her a selling office manager in that respect. And it was cradle to grave of your ownership opportunity of this. So it wasn't like, okay, you go out and sell a job and we pay you this and you don't worry about it anymore. You had to see that all the way through to getting, paid on those jobs on there. Mm-hmm. I think there's, and so that made it worth the 15% at that point, to where it wasn't just, here's a lead, I've sold it, go wash it and give me a check. That got too expensive for 15%. I think most of the large company that bought my company, those salespeople, they're opportunity owners themselves. The project and that same number where we're talking about, that around the 10% number, tends to be true with a lot of the larger companies in there. And it's good money for guys whenever they're paying anywhere between 8 to 12% on that. And these people are, each salesperson is out there doing over $1 million in sales a year. I mean, it's good money for it, but it's not just the selling. It is we're either giving you leads to close, or you may be having to generate your own leads.
And that should affect the amount that they make.
Yep. And that can be too. Correct. But you've also, it's not just selling, it's you're checking on the service. You're doing the follow-up. You're doing all the little pieces that make the job complete on there.
Yeah. Like, so you could do something.
When you're talking about, percentages. So let's have that discussion where, what should the percent be when you're hiring a salesperson? And, like, we're talking about numbers in the million range, right? So what about the guy that's not anywhere near that range yet? So if you look at that, this is one of the points where, when you start looking at a percentage of sales, right? And let's just, for argument's sake, and I think a lot of people, you want to make $100,000 a year, let's just say. So think about what is a good wage for your area, and then start boiling it down from there. So I'm going to use $100,000 as the example, right? if you have $100,000, how much does that person need to make per week, per month, per day to be able to reach that 100 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand, whatever you're planning on selling or on paying them? So if you think about it, if you tell somebody that you're going to pay them 5% of each sale, right? First, you got to make sure whether you're determining gross or net, because that's a huge difference, right? But let's say you say, okay, I'm going to pay you 5%. Okay, so you go out and you sell $5,000 worth of cleaning. That's only $250, guys. You have to look at those numbers and say, at 5%, what is my average house wash price? Let's say your average house wash price is $500, just because this is going to be easier for me. It's actually, I got a cheat sheet right over here, just so you guys know. But anyhow, let's say that your average house wash is $500. If you go 5%, that's $25. So if they do 6 of those a day, they make $150. Do you see where I'm going? That's not going to be enough for anybody to stick around. They got to work their tail off to make those 6 sales for a day. You also have to have the staff, the production staff, to be able to do the 6 a day for him, the 6 a day for you, whatever that number is. We don't do 6 house washes a day. Our trucks would do, most of 2 house washes a day, but our average ticket is $1,200 to $1,300 kind of a thing. So my point to that is, you have to look at numbers and break them down to a realistic fashion to say, okay, 5% just isn't going to cut the mustard. Now, if one sale is $5,000, then 5% is probably enough. If that one sale is $500, 5% is not enough. Okay, so you have to look at those, look at your numbers, price it out, figure it all out, and then come up with a pricing structure. But you also have to know your numbers in order to do that. If you don't know your numbers, none of this, there's no point to any of this.
Yeah, you're just guessing.
Now, I want to back up and again, some personal experience that we had. So you need to also take these salespeople, and if your technicians are getting paid on piecework too, you're talking about net versus gross, and something that's very important is to take these gross costs on there, because let's say that it's a $5,000 job, 1 day job, but we've got a $2,500 lift in there. Is it really fair to charge the company for that 135-foot lift? And even though it's going to be a 1 day job, so how much is that getting paid for the company? Well, it's $2,500, not $500, or $2,500, not $5,000 on there. So sometimes we need to back these costs out and pay based on the net, and maybe not the true net. I'm not saying the true net after taxes, but at least the net after expenses on there.
In that case, I would just exclude rental equipment, stuff like that from the, if that's the case where the job is $5,000, but if there's a $2,500 rental fee, then their sales will be based off of the $2,500 minus rental equipment.
Yeah,
that's the way.
Rental equipment.
Something else that I've seen companies do, and experience this on companies, whenever you're the opportunity owner, okay, and you're the salesperson, and I'm washing a job at Florida State. I'm going to say Florida State. Everybody knows we did Florida State University, but you're the opportunity owner for a job at Florida State University. Your job as the salesperson is also, like I said, you're the owner of it. Your job is to see it through to cradle to grave. Your job is also to provide support to the crews that are washing that. And they should be able to call up and say, hey, Trevor, we're going to need some more towels, or we need you to make sure they can shut down the south entrance on Thursday. And that salesperson really ought to become integral to that sales on there, because that also keeps the salesperson from overselling something as well too. I mean, that's
them
more engaged, and it keeps them more as a whole part of it, and it lets them also know what the crews are going through, because we have seen salespeople that will go out and oversell stuff, not necessarily knowing, and kind of throwing the crews under the bus in that respect. It's also going to help the salesperson stay on part of their track, because what if the crew now, and there is a $2,500 lift, and the crew just can't quite get it done in that one day, which they should have been because of not having some material support from that salesperson. I think those are all important things.
And then you get into that second day, and that affects the net.
That affects everybody's income at that point, because all the profit's been wiped out of that job.
And that's where you have to think about, whether you want to pay net or you want to pay gross, to figure that out. Because if you pay on gross and you go 10%, you can actually drop to 5% on net, and it comes out to, I'm just making the numbers up, but it can even itself.
You're losing money on every job at that point.
Exactly.
And so Todd brings this up, that's cradle to grave. And I've even seen companies work very closely with companies, if y'all get what I mean, that on the piece work or the commission work, that even the technicians, the lead technician that's getting paid a percentage of that job, I'm going to toss out somewhere between 16 to 20%, go figure what that might be. They're also, not only they're making them also split the expenses. Now, not the lift, but let's say that you break a sidewalk and that has to get re-poured, or you need, you've got to have a piece of equipment. We need a certain water-fed pole for it, or something like that. Other expenses, you're going to actually share your percentage of those expenses as well too. Or you screw it up and you do need the lift for the other day, and it's $1,000 lift. So because you weren't able to get this done in your timely manner, we're now going to charge you $160 to $200 for this lift, or somewhere right in the middle of that. So even your technicians are getting in on the action and sharing the expenses. And whenever they do that, you can bet the jobs tend to get a lot more effective and done in a quicker manner in that respect. Are you blocking that, Doug?
I blocked that one, yeah.
I got excited. I was like, oh, do we have a guest?
That's just my website. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
1-800-SEXY. So yeah, I mean, you can share these costs all the way down the board on sometimes, and sometimes just really getting these people more involved financially can benefit everybody on your team.
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of deterred me from doing piecework or percentage is that I've always felt that it kind of motivates people to cut corners and not take the attention to detail that a good worker that makes hourly would do. Like when we do a project like residential, like I have my guys go around and they do a walkthrough on every job with the customer if they're available. But we have them go around before that, so where they can catch something before the customer does. And I feel like if you did piecework, a lot of that stuff would end up going missing, because I think in their mind they look at that as free work.
Right.
Like they're doing things that they wouldn't have to do if nobody noticed that, they're going to get away with it and they're going to save 45 minutes or if we buzz through this job, and get it done 2 hours early, it's like, oh, we get paid for, 2 hours less. But we're working 2 hours less, but we're getting paid the full amount. I just feel like that kind of promotes that kind of corner cutting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't disagree with you. That's where it takes a lot of trust on with everybody.
Yeah.
That's also where it's important to have that salesperson back and engaged at every step of the job. So the salesperson is now going in there and helping to be part of the quality control, because let's face it, the salesperson is not going to get paid until they sign off on the job as well. So when we say the cradle to the grave, the salesperson has to go in and do that. And I know this is going to be a very controversial statement that I'm making here, but doing piecework with a dollar minimum that someone's making, they only have to work for free a couple of days, and they'll stop cut or work for their very minimum for a couple of days, and they'll stop cutting those corners because they don't want to have. I mean, I'm looked at a neighborhood that I was thinking of last year that, you know, some of my guys gave, and they had to go back 5 and 6 times for screen porches and driveways that they went and missed, you know,
especially if that's something the salesperson sold.
And it's like, I'm sorry, you already made your 18% on this job right here. Why am I going to pay you to go back out and
fix what should have been done right?
Redo that. Oh, wait, legally.
But that's where, on the sales side of it, I think, I mean, that's where you have to look at the net and the gross, right? So here's one of the problems that you run into. If you look at it from the side of the gross, that's really where the salesperson wants to look at it, because they can figure that out. They know how much they're making. They don't know how much they're making if you try to do it from the net side of it. So most of the times I'm going to bet that the net side doesn't necessarily work unless they've been there a while and they know. So maybe do something where they start off on the gross, but then they end up working their way into the net. And the gross should be where they actually make a little bit less on gross than they do on net. But you also need to have a very structured plan in place as to what their job really is. Is it just you're going out to sell the job? That's it. You wash your hands, you make your money. That's it. You're done. Doesn't matter what happens on that job. You make X number of percent. Or is it a cradle to grave? It is your job from cradle to grave when that job is done. And that should pay a higher percent than something that is just, hey, a sell it and go, right? So a sell it and go, I can see the 5% mark, right? Where a cradle to grave, I mean, if it's a really hardcore thing, there are some of them that pay 50%, okay? I think that would be ridiculous for our market. But the other thing I think you need to do is you need to make sure you have structured pricing, okay? That's where it gets really difficult. And Trevor, that's one of the things you and I talked about. Having structured pricing for what we do is difficult to be able to maintain. And that's where that 10-month cycle comes in before they really learn what it is that you do. And you have to plan that they're not going to know for that, you know, at least that probably 6 to 10 month range.
Any salesperson needs to spend time with the crews. And by spend time with the crews, I mean dragging hoses.
On the job.
They need to be on the jobs. I mean, probably for 2 to 3 weeks on there.
You may not get them to pull hoses though. Some people are really good at sales, but they suck at anything else. Right?
I think trying to take a person that is a salesperson and that's all they've done, or that's predominantly what they've done for a career, it's going to be hard to talk them into getting out and doing the physical work on a truck for any period of time.
And you're losing.
And I don't really want them to do the work. I want them to, that's why I say pull the hoses. I don't really want them to be doing the work. I want my technicians to be doing the work. I want the salesperson to see what work it is they're doing. I want
a good example of that though, Ray, is that one that was posted on the Academy today where, you know, the guy was talking about, actually, I think it was posted on Pro where somebody had sprayed a roof and this guy was saying, hey, about how, you know, they hired the cheap guy and this is what they get. So around there was downspouts and the sauce went down the downspout, came out, it had underground drains that came up to the pop-ups, and the pop-ups, everything is dead around them, right? So the guy doesn't necessarily have to be there to know that, but this is where you keep track of what happens, how it happens, why it happens. Maybe you make them take the plant and property class, you know, those kinds of things. You have them take the training that your technicians take so that they understand, they have an idea of what it is that they're selling. They learn about the process. They learn about Gleocapsomagma. They learn about the things that you do in your industry and have a better understanding of those things so that they can then, it will help them in that sales process. Because you can't beat me in sales because of what I know about that project, about these projects. So you have to find a way to make them fit into both fields, if you would.
Mitchell has a great comment here about the commission to the leads, but they're also held accountable for stuff. They're responsible for photos documenting the entire property before and after the jobs. And I want to bounce back to this one. So how much can one salesperson realistically sell in a 95% residential business model, in your opinions?
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, there's days that I go out and do residential sales and I'll sell $15,000 worth of services, just the residential. So that's
you.
I know, but I mean that shows what somebody can do when they have the knowledge, they have the drive, and the potential is there.
Isn't necessarily going to have the knowledge that you have. So I don't want to cut you off there, Trevor, but
okay,
I'm going to say what you're going to say, Trevor. If you take and you say 65% of whatever your number is, so now go for it.
Okay, so that would be like 10 grand.
Right.
I sell $1,000 a day. Now, it's true. Like I can do that. Now, I would never expect some guy that I hire that was selling, cable, 6 months ago, that's going to be able to do those numbers. In that instance, I really feel like one of the best fits for having a salesperson is taking somebody that has worked for you on the truck, that has done the work, and turning them into a salesperson. I think that having that knowledge is more valuable than somebody that has experience with sales. Like you can teach, I think, most relatively intelligent people how to do sales. If you have relatively good intelligence, you're a good talker, you can relate well to people, you can learn that, I think, a lot easier than taking a salesperson and trying to cram all this knowledge into them and not sell services that they can't deliver. Because you can send a salesperson out to somebody's house and they can tell this person they're going to fix all of their problems. Like, oh, we could fix that paint, or we can fix this or that. Just sign right here on the estimate, and we'll get a crew out here and they'll get it fixed. And then they're just relying on the crew to hopefully be able to deliver what they've sold. But they really don't understand that they've sold something that they're never going to be able to deliver on.
Right.
Yeah, it just can't be done. And so you're going to have to either discount those services dramatically in order to make that person happy. They're not going to want to pay, or you're going to have to fight with them in order to get them to pay, and then they're going to turn around and badmouth you for the next 5 years at every single event that they ever go to where there's a crowd of people willing to listen.
Yeah. This is where you have to have a structured thing with whatever your sales process is and how that payment is going to go, and to be able to hold each and every person accountable along the way. You got to have your techs have to be held accountable. Your sales guy has to be held accountable. You have to be held accountable. You have to have a way to hold them accountable during those things. This is one of the reasons, like I know I have a competitor in the market that, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but I mean, he told his sales guys, look, I want this much per house. Okay, on a house wash. Let's just throw it out. Let's say it's a roof cleaning. I want to make X number of dollars on a roof cleaning. Whatever you sell it for over that is yours. That is a stupid way of trying to grow your business. I mean, I know I went out on a job where the guy was like, "Do you know how much he wanted for this roof job?" And I think at the time, this is years ago, but we had sold it for like I think it was $850, and he was like $2,400. He's like, "Man, the guy just was nailing us because of our neighborhood," right? And at the time, the right pricing was that $850. So if you do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot by allowing them to just price out whatever. You have to have a structured pricing plan, and then you have to have something that holds them accountable if they do mess up on a job. So and that's where the net comes in, but you don't even have to use the net. You can still use the gross, just holding them accountable to that gross number.
Unless I'm sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
I was going to say that I think that's where having their end pay should have something to do with what the actual paid out ticket is. Like if they sell a job for $2,500 and they've said, oh, we can fix all these things that you can't deliver on, and you end up having to discount or oh, we're not going to charge you for that because we weren't actually able to make the improvements that we guaranteed on that, or that salesperson guaranteed on that. Their pay should be reflected on what you actually made from the job. And I think that adds accountability to one, for them to communicate with their crew to make sure that things are delivered in the way that they've been promised. I think that's gonna end up making everybody more money in the long run, because there needs to be accountability.
Yeah, people are notorious for over promising because they're trying to make that sale.
Now, I want to go back to, I want to answer Chet's question here, and let's use, I don't think he would mind us talking about him. I don't mean we're not doing anything negative, but Pat Clark, Pat. Let's look at Pat. Pat's pretty well documented his life online, and he was typically $1.3 million or so. And Pat rock flyed like crazy, and he did, that $1.3 million. And I think he had 3 salespeople on there for him. And he was mainly residential. He had some commercial on there, but he had, a few large apartment complexes. But let's say of that, $1.3 million business on there, he had, $1 million of it was residential on there. And that was 3 salespeople that were generating, probably $1 million in between, with rock flyers and the people, and what would happen is the office would literally, give them, hey, you had a call come in, go close this sale, go close this sale. Because Pat would show those, I don't know if you remember them, but he had the clip rods that had everybody's appointments on there, and he would make the appointments for the salespeople, on a triplicate form. And so they would go out to close those sales on there. So, how much can they realistically sell? I would think that $300,000 to $500,000 would be let's say $250,000 to $400,000 would be a very reasonable goal for a salesperson to sell residentially, just looking at those numbers. But understand something, now that's incumbent upon you as the business owner, also helping to generate those leads for that too. It's not for your, understand, here's the part where people really screw the pooch on here. Okay, they think because I get a salesperson, now all of a sudden, the lights come down from the heavens and everything's going to be great. My problems are solved. Well, it actually is going to make you and you as the business owner work even harder. Oh, and you guys work even harder, because now you've got to keep that salesperson busy. It's not like that salesperson is going to be on some plugged into some pipeline of houses out there. You've got to be doing the advertising. You've got to be supplying leads for that salesperson to go out there and close.
Not necessarily. You don't necessarily have to feed that. So, I mean, in sales, there's a thing called feed your horses, right?
Right.
So you always want to be feeding your horses with all your if you've got 2 sales guys, there's and this goes true in just about virtually any industry. It's called the 80-20 rule. We talk about it a lot. We talk about it a lot in real estate, right? 80% of all sales come from 20% of your sales staff, so to speak. So you feed your horses, the 20% that are doing that, all the sales, that's who you pump stuff to. But good salespeople, and this is where commission structures come into play. If they go out and they get their own leads and they generate their own thing, that costs you less money, meaning that I don't have to spend money on marketing. I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that. And they have gone out and they have used their network. They go to the BNI meetings. They go to, whatever it is. They go to county fairs and they go to gas stations and hand out whatever it is that they do to generate their own leads, and they make sales. They should get paid more for that than if they're coming from your lead. So if I'm a sales guy for your company, I'm going to do anything and everything to make as much money as I possibly can, as long as I'm doing it morally, ethically, all that kind of fun stuff. But the thing where you and I might differ a little bit, Ray, is just that when you say 250 to say 400,000, I think a sales guy should be, you know, at the end of the day, how much do you want that salesperson to make? And that's where I think you should start. If that sales guy in your market, let's say you're in a big market like we are, Baton Rouge, and I want that guy to make his $100,000 a year. If he's selling 250 to 400,000, I can't pay him 100,000. Right. So he has to go out and sell close to $1 million in order to make that. So if I'm answering the question, I'm going to say on the residential side of it, that guy should be selling pretty close to where you're at. And let's say he's selling that 650 to 850 range would be, for me, what's going to end up getting him maybe that close to that $100,000, you know, 70 to 100,000 is where, to me, that sales guy should be at.
And
so
you know, also
I need to figure my numbers based on that.
But let's think about who our salespeople are going to be as well too. I know that Pat used to use a lot of retirees and older folks that were supplementing retirement income on the sales stuff as well. You know, so I would think that those guys, you know, just thinking of who he used. I know a window cleaner that comes in here who works for Fish. He's a retired firefighter. He's got a pension. Moved down here for the family. He wants to be off at like 2 to 3 o'clock each day, and he could go and open a window cleaning company, and he's probably doing $20-$30 an hour with Fish as an independent contractor for them, and he's quite happy. But to me, that would be your perfect salesperson right there, is somebody that's a little bit older, that is retired, that wants an extra oomph and bump on there. And again, I'm going to go back to where you, as the business owner, and you're right, Doug, you're 100% right as far as, yes, a good salesperson is going to have a network of people he can sell stuff to. But I also think where the critical mistake that most business owners are going to do is business owners forget the difference between marketing and sales so many times. And it's going to be incumbent upon us to do more marketing on there to help feed our salespeople, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So I have another company where we service like cooling towers for manufacturing facilities and stuff like that. In that type of industry, salespeople are expected to go out and do marketing in a way where they build relationships with companies, and you'll have a salesman go from one company to another, and they will take their contacts with them or their customers with them. Whereas the
not
service
intentionally, it's their customers.
I mean, they build these relationships, and a lot of times when you end up hiring a salesperson in that kind of industry, during the interview, you'll ask, who are your customers?
What's your book of business?
What's your book of business? Who's going to come with you? Right. Now, in the residential game, like that doesn't happen. Right. Like, you're not going to hire a salesperson for residential, and you're like, oh, I've got 10,000, families that'll come with me. Those relationships they're going to have to build.
Yeah, it'll happen, but not as much.
And Joe, to answer your question, for the cradle to the grave, the salesperson's not out there on the job necessarily with them, but the salesperson is going to act in one scenario. I'm not saying this has to be, but definitely in the commercial it's going to be. But I think even on the residential, I think the salesperson winds up being the quality control manager, is that as far too, to make sure that the crews have done everything correctly, and it doesn't really get signed off on, nor does anybody get paid, especially the salesperson, until the salesperson goes and signs off on the job that's been done.
And a lot of times on a cradle to grave type scenario, the salesperson is actually the one that collects the check. They either do it at the beginning when the job is sold, or they go back and they collect the check when the job is done, and they make sure that the job is done to the satisfaction of the customer, and that follow-ups are done to make sure that the customer is happy and satisfied. They don't necessarily go out on the job, but on a lot of times, cradle to grave type situation, the salesperson is showing up either before, during, or after that job is in progress, right? So if that job is happening on Monday and it's supposed to start at 2, the sales guy might show up in the morning. He might show up at 2. He might show up at 4, whatever. But at some point in time, he's going to show up to that job. That doesn't always happen with cradle to graves, but when we're saying cradle to grave, they're basically holding the customer's hand, from the initial marketing through the sales process, not necessarily being on the job, but making sure the job went correctly, making sure the customer is satisfied. They're going to make sure that they're getting referrals from the customer, that they're going to get a review from the customer, all those things that generate more sales and referrals down the line.
Yeah. I think there's things that you can do, like with the instance where the cradle to grave type of sales structure is, you can change that percentage based off of what's happened with that sale. So let's say you tell your salesperson, okay, you go out and sell this job, you get 8%. You go out and sell this job, and then you talk to the customer after, and you get a positive review, a 5-star review on Google and Facebook. Okay, now your percentage is 9%. You took good before and after pictures that we can use for advertising off that job. That 9% is now 10%. Mm-hmm. So you could reward follow-ups and the structure, all the things that you're wanting them to do that a lot of times, and let's be real, like a lot of those things just get overlooked because we're trying to hit that next sales and then the next sales and the next sales. So all those little fine points that really at the end of the day, we really need in order to keep sales flowing and keep, referrals coming in.
But
those
Trevor,
things get looked over.
That's a great point. And I mean, like if I hired on with a company, I would want to be there, at the end of that sales cycle, at the end of that job. Mm-hmm. I would want the ability to go back. And there's a reason for me going back. That reason for me going back is now I get to make sure that customer is happy by having that one-on-one and building that relationship with them. I can either ask them for the check, but now, again, I get to ask them for the reviews. I get to show them the before and afters. I get to whatever. Hey, who of your friends do you think could use this service that we can send these before and after pictures to? It gives. So I don't remember the numbers, so forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's a crazy high number. Like I think it's over 80% of good service businesses are built on referrals. Right. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it's over 80%, might even be in the 90 percentile range where your business survives off of referrals. So for me, as a salesperson, I want to have that final thing with them so that I can ask them, hey, can I get this other? Can I get a referral? Can we share? Who can we share these pictures with? A good salesperson is going to know those things and is going to want to do the final points. And by what Trevor's saying, having that structured point where they can follow it along the whole way and say, okay, I get an extra 1% for this, 1% for that, 1% for this. I could end up making 12, 15, 20, whatever your percentage ends up being. That's bingo. That's gold.
And I don't know how many times I've showed up to a customer's house, the day after or 2 days after we did a job. And I'm talking with them, and they're like, oh, hey, my neighbor next door came over and said he wants an estimate. Oh, he's home right now. So you go over and talk to them, and then, boom, Absolutely. another job. Or you're standing there talking to him, and the guy across the street, notices the house looks completely different, and then comes over and goes, hey, can you give me an estimate when you have a moment? Like, that's a perfect opportunity to get people that have literally seen the work you've done. They have a good representation of what you're delivering, and you're putting yourself out there to rein in those people. So like doing the follow-ups puts you in a position to bring in, jobs that you're not going to have to really pay for. You don't have to do advertising for them. You've already done the best type of advertising. They've seen what you can do. And if you're able to deliver and they have a problem, you're going to be the one they go to.
That's so also a point where I say you should have your production staff, the guys that are actually out there cleaning, you should have sales training meetings with them and have your sales guy help them with those sales meetings. Okay. So this is something that I've always thought is a really good thing to do in a service type business. And that is, especially as your business grows. Let's say you've got 6 trucks and you've got 2 sales guys. Why not assign those, you're the sales guy for those 3 trucks and you're the sales guy for those 3 trucks. You can create competition between them, and let them pick and choose each other, whatever. But also they can call, they can say, hey, I have a neighbor across the street right now that wants an estimate. Okay. Now your sales guy can say, dude, I am clear across, I'm in New Mexico right now. Do this, and walk them through going over and talking with that neighbor and getting a sales. And they both end up making a commission on the deal, right? Because that's the absolute best time to sell to them is right then and there when they're asking for it. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing, I think Ray and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, but when it comes time to adding trucks, there's a lot of guys out there that have multiple trucks. Like, let's say they've got 5 trucks and they're like, oh, we're doing $1 million a year in sales. It's like, you're doing $1 million a year in sales off of 5 trucks. So you're averaging $200,000 a truck. That's not a good business model.
No, that's a horrible business model.
Like, you're better off. Yeah. You're better off like before you start adding on trucks like that, or, multiple units, make the one unit you have really profitable.
Get it to full, use it, do it, use it to its full capacity. And then, and we know that, typically speaking, a truck can do $250,000 out there. I have known guys.
Is a good average. 250.
I've known guys that, and that's a good average, 250 to 300. I've known. I look at my old. We were at 4 trucks, $1.2 million, $1.3 million. That's right around in there. When we were at 4 trucks, $1 million, and those numbers when we were at 3 trucks, we were at 750 to 850 in those couple of years there. Those numbers hold pretty darn true. So 5 trucks doing $1 million or what is it for the one guy, 2 trailers and a truck, and he's doing 500,000 last year. It's like, dude, you are so underutilizing your staff and your thing, because you should be almost doing that, with 1.5 out there.
And the market in different markets are different. Like I made an example of 5 trucks, $1 million. Now there's a lot of markets out there where you're doing well.
Yeah.
If you're in a competitive market, the cost of living is lower. In my market, you're going to go out of business.
But and let's also, but and I know there's also guys who are probably going to go, well, my truck does 400,000 in. Again, it's an industry average. I talked to a guy at PWNA and he was at like 417 on one truck. Now he also did a lot of paver sealing and roof sealing as well. So the cost of his business was a lot more, because whenever we're getting into that paver sealing and we're paying, $250 for a 5-gallon, and they're using that. Yeah, the costs are a lot more on there. They're making more, but they're spending more as well.
Hey, I want to bring up a point too. As we're talking about all this, because we're not going to get into everything that we could get into, obviously, but one of the points that I do want to make is that when you make that decision and you move towards hiring a salesperson, one of the most important things you can do is make sure that they have your phone, and that all calls that they make in and out are from your phone. You buy a phone that you give to them, and it is very clear that they use that phone and that phone only. They are to use that their phone doesn't even exist during the time when they're working, because they are using your phone for every incoming and every outgoing call.
That is a company phone.
We were talking about a few minutes ago, Trevor, where, a salesperson comes in, they have their own book of business, right? Yeah. However, you need to get that book of business coming to you. And if they're there for 6 months or 6 years, doesn't necessarily matter. If they're using their phone when they go, guess where all your contacts went? With them and their phone.
Oh, yeah.
Do not do that to yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
I heard somebody, I had an argument with him once about, man, that phone's I got to pay $500 for the phone. Then I got to pay an extra $40 a month for the service when, I just work a deal out with them where I just give them an extra $10 a month for their service.
Like, if you're running a business and you're freaked out over $40 a month, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I would totally agree with that. That all sales needs to go through a company phone and not their personal phone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I got a ton of stuff we could still touch on, but we are an hour and 15 into it already, and man, I feel like I don't even think I've touched my list, which is a good thing. But I mean,
well, I'm good to go if you guys want to keep going. I'm cool. I mean, I'm in California time, so it's 6:15 here, so I got all the time in the world.
So is it dark yet?
Ray's the one on the late time.
What? Ray's what?
Ray's the one on the late time.
Yeah. So is it dark yet?
Yeah, no, it's dark. It's dark. It was storming earlier. We got some rain, thunder, and lightning, but it calmed down a little bit now. So, but yeah, it's now dark.
So Todd is saying, I don't know if you've clicked on this one yet. I have one rig, $500,000 in sales this year so far, and my guys stay busy.
Yes.
We'll be adding another rig in the spring and hopefully double the sales. And Todd, you're up in the north as well, right?
No, Todd's in Columbus, Georgia. Or
but he gets snow.
No. I mean, that's central Georgia. They ain't gonna. I mean, they may. It's a rarity there. Now they'll get some nasty. They'll get some cold enough to not.
I thought Todd was up a little bit higher, and he was.
Yeah, Todd Wiskowski. No.
Well.
Now I would say to Todd, before you start adding trucks, you need to have a realistic expectation of what you want your future to look like business-wise. Because Ray and I have had this conversation a few times where people feel, I think people feel like, oh, if I put on 2 trucks, I'm going to make so much more money, or 3 trucks, I'm going to make so much more money. That's not always necessarily true.
Right.
If somebody can make a lot of money with 1 truck, with really good accounts, with a dialed-in sales system, good employees. They can make more money than a guy that's technically, grossing $1 million a year with 4 or 5 trucks, because his expenses are that much more, and the stress on his life is that much more. He's having to worry about payroll. He's having to worry about workman's comp. He's having to worry about insurance. He's having to worry about a lot of things. That's going to put a lot of stress on you. So in some instances, like if you don't want that, hone that 1 truck. Like make that a super efficient 1 truck, and you can make a lot of money.
And he's at 500,000 on 1. I mean, he has.
Yeah. That's very close to what we do per truck. Like that's a good amount of money on 1 truck. You add on 2 trucks and 3 trucks, your stress level is going to go up.
You don't. Trevor, I mean, you're in California where everything is super expensive. So your average house wash is $7,000. I know that.
Yeah,
so
I mean, our average
$1 million.
Yeah, I mean, our trucks average about $2,400 to $2,800 a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about what they do a day. That's the average.
Yeah, and as we're having these discussions, just like we always say, you have to look at the area that you're in, because our average was generally right around that $1,200. I don't know what it is now, but was right, because I guarantee it's higher now, but was right around that $1,200 range, right? And so, and I think Ray, I think you said it at the one point when you and I were talking about that, yours were like 1,100 or something like that. So every area is slightly different in what you can attain per truck. So so again, we already talked about defining responsibilities. I think that's a huge point. You need to make sure you do that. We talked about how long it takes them to become productive. So quotas, sometimes people say, well, should I set a quota for my salesperson? And my response to that is yes. What say you, Ray Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to set there's got to be expectations. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
now if they come in and they don't make it one day, do you kill them? No. I mean, this needs to be over a time, and there needs to be adjustment, and there needs to be training and coaching, and there needs to be, teamwork on there of how you're going to get this done. But I think you need to figure out what's the close ratio, and what's and a lot of guys are real good about their close ratios and what we have. But how are we going to, if I can close, we see guys saying, well, I'm closing 65% of my stuff. Well, you're probably too cheap then. I think that 40% is the most amazing close ratio you can be at. Mm-hmm. Is your salesperson going to close all the leads? Are they being too cheap? Because, I mean, honestly, that can cost you more money than the salesperson, not selling enough.
This is where we talk about, feeding your horses. If you have more than one salesperson and you've got one that's closing all of his deals and he's making good money and all that, that's the one that you need to be pumping all your leads to, and maybe getting the others to go on a ride along with him. But I believe in quotas because, for me, if salespeople have a tendency to, I don't really have to, I don't know what to do, or they go off and they do this, they take an extended lunch, whatever. Right. And they're not out there making the company money, but they're costing the company money. So what say you on that one, Trev?
I think it's good to let them know, like, this is what we're expecting. Like, the truck needs to make X amount of dollars a day, or I need X amount of sales out of you a week. There's times where, like, I'm like, I had a horrible day in sales. Like, I went out on six estimates and I only closed 2 out of 6. And there's times where I go out and
you go out on 9 and you close 9.
Yeah. There's times where I'll go out and I'm like, I've hit every single one. And like, we do package deals.
Yep.
And it's like, they took the top package every time. And you're like, fuck, I killed it. And then there's times where you just feel like you can't catch a break. Like, you walk up to somebody and you're like, oh, this guy, he's wanting to spend money. He needs this. He's putting his house on the market next week. This place looks terrible. He's going to bite. And then he's like, oh, no way. Nope, not doing it. So I think you need to have some type of expectation. I think that you can't push it to where you're going to stress your sales guy out, but he needs to have a clear understanding of what you're expecting to happen in the long run. Like, I don't think it's good to say you need to do this amount of sales every day.
Right. I don't think it should be a daily thing.
Yeah, no, it should be like a week or every 2 weeks, or maybe a month thing, to where they can have a bad day. They can have an off day, or they can, or
they can have an off week.
Yeah, or off week, and it's not going to screw them up mentally, because part of sales, it's a huge mental thing, being comfortable and being, feeling like you can go out and achieve something. Mm-hmm. And if you're setting goals and, a daily goal, that's just going to put your sales guy in a mindset where he's just going to feel like he's failing all the time, because he's like, well, shoot, two days out of this week, I didn't hit my number. Okay, right. Well, those other 3 days you went above and beyond. Mm-hmm. Like, don't set yourself up to mentally knock yourself down like that.
So, and going along that line, because sales is an up and down cycle for the most part. When you start somebody out, you have to have a set number. Okay. So in other words, let me go this way, which I think is pretty common. Say, I'm going to guarantee you X number of dollars, a week for the next 3 months. Okay. Mm-hmm. While you're building up, because when somebody hires on, if they're 100% commission, right, they may not get paid. If you're busy and your trucks are booked a month out, well, it's going to be a month before they get paid. So you have to be able to build off of that. So you can say, I'll give you a guarantee of $500 a week for the next 3 months. And then after that, but every single thing will go against the draw of your commissions. You could do that. Okay. Allowing them to draw on their commissions. But another thing I'll encourage you to do is once they do actually move into that commission space where they're really only commissions, is to have a set amount. Let's say, just for argument's sake, that they're making 13% off of gross. Okay. But 1% of that 13% goes into a side kitty every single sale, right? And that side kitty, until that side kitty gets up to $5,000, and I'm just making up numbers. But the reason that you do that is so that when they do have that down week or that down month,
they can pull money.
They can then pull off of that $5,000 that's sitting there waiting for them, and then start losing that 1% again to fill that $5,000 coffer back up. 5,000 is just a number. Whether you make it 1,000 or you make it 10,000.
That's a good idea. No, that's a good idea because it keeps your salesperson from stressing out and maybe making mistakes because they find themselves in a desperate position where they're like, hey, I've got my mortgage due and I haven't done very well this week. And then they start making mistakes or they start pushing a customer too hard to the point where they've made them feel uncomfortable and then they just shut down.
They're losing.
So I think
they're uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I think that's a good idea to have something like that set aside for a peace of mind for the salesperson so they don't feel like their world's going to fall apart if they have, consistently a crappy week or, something. They have something that they've actually, and it's something they've actually built up. Like you haven't just given them free money. Like this is money that they've earned.
Yeah. It's also their vacation money. Just so
back 20 years ago when I was 30 years ago when I was a mortgage loan officer, we had a draw against the commission is what you could have whenever you had stuff in the pipeline or in the works. You could draw, you were going to get $1,500 every 2 weeks, whether you needed it or not, as a draw against your commissions, because a lot of times our stuff wouldn't close till the end of the month. So you'd have and then there would be a 2-week hold off after your closings. Your loans were funded, you got paid. So then at the end of the month, that $1,500 check was coming in, real handy on there, or, the draw against the commission that you were getting. Out there, which was nice.
I'll also encourage you, if you're going to hire a salesperson, right, and you bring him in, you set him down. It's Trevor is coming to work for my company. When I bring Trevor in to do the interview with him, so this is where, to me, the paradigm kind of shifts a little bit. If I'm hiring you for a technician role, I'm interviewing you. Okay. If I'm hiring you for a sales role, I'm going to tell you to interview me. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want to see how comfortable you are, how people-y you are, right? Because a good salesperson is going to take that and he's going to run. Okay, well, hey, Mr. Doug, how long have you been in business? And what have you been doing? And how many trucks do you have? And how much money do you make? And blah, 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 blah. And they're going to lead that off. If they can do that, they've been in sales for a good while, and they know about the sales process. Doesn't mean they all have to do that, but
you're right.
Keep that in mind when you're looking to hire a salesperson. Let them kind of drive the interview. And also, if you have one salesperson and you're looking to hire a second salesperson, do that with having an open dialogue with the current salesperson, because you have different types of salespeople. And what I mean is, you might get one person that really just likes to make phone calls. That's what they want to do. But the other person likes going to meet people. Allow them, if they want, to work together, and allow this guy to set the sales and this guy to run them. I don't care who does what, as long as I'm getting my sales goals met. Right?
And you might have a company to where you have enough, enough call-ins and then internet sales and inquiries on your website that you can have an inside and an outside salesperson out there. Let's also talk about what are we going to require the salesperson to drive and to wear. I think that's important on there.
Absolutely.
And, I know that Charlie, he's got a great sales vehicle. A sedan with that's logoed up, just perfect. Fully wrapped. I think this is where having a sales vehicle for your company becomes very important on there. My opinion only, but I think, he's going to be in a polo. He's going to look
Company
a certain
shirt,
way. I think
company hat if he wears a hat.
Yeah, there's too many people who hire their friend as a salesperson, and the friend has a loud jacked up truck, or let's face it, there's a lot of kids getting this business, and I don't mean to be insulting. I mean, dear Lord, we can call Wesley Bloom a kid. He's young compared to all of us, and he's a rock star, an absolute rock star out there. Awesome. But there's a lot of 21, 25-year-olds that I see that are kind of rednecky, and oh yeah, man, this is gonna be killer, and we're gonna make all kind of money, and hey man, you want to come to work for me? And the guy tries driving a truck, with straight pipes and a Carolina squat, and shows up, to the person's house with a T-shirt on that says "Give me head till I'm dead," kind of thing. And it's like you have to make your salesperson also look the part, and part of that is upon you as a. Think about any. I'll give you a great example. There was a independent contractor for a internet company, I don't want to say in the name, who looked, and he came knocking on the door, and it was somebody that we wanted to go with and move away from Comcast, and he looked so bedraggled and pathetic, even though this is something we couldn't wait for them to come to us and give them our money and get away from Comcast. I wouldn't buy from this kid because he looked so freaking awful. I mean, he really, really did. Just unprofessional, and probably got thrown to the wolves by his boss. We wound up getting the service, but not from him.
Or you lost me.
What's that?
Oh, there you go.
There we go. We all lost. But so, I think that's a real important lesson to have on these salespeople. Don't make them look the part. Really make them look the part, especially to the customers that you're selling to.
Yeah,
that's one of the points that I had here, where if you're going to hire a salesperson, first of all, I think you should have your sales car. That's part of the sales car, sales truck. In our industry, I would prefer a sales truck, but also I would encourage you to have a camera put in that truck so that you can monitor. I mean, I hate to say it, but monitor their speed and their, if you're okay with them doing, 70 and a 55, great, let them know. If you're not, great, let them know. It's your company, your rules, kind of a thing. But it's not about them nowadays, by the way. It is about you, your company, and your safety, because there are too many people out there right now that pull in front of people, hit their brakes, let you slam into them, and claim, I've been hurt. So, cameras to me are I think, becoming a must. Anyhow, you were saying something, Trevor, before I rudely interrupted.
I was saying, yeah, it's important. Like, if you're gonna have a salesperson, that you're sending them out to do sales, and they're not driving into a neighborhood with all these neon signs of things that are going to piss people off.
Right.
Like if you have, like, for instance, like I was doing sales in a neighborhood, and I saw, I'm pretty sure the guy was selling solar, and he pulled up in the house, and he had a Hellcat with no mufflers on it, with race stickers all over the car. That's what he was driving for a sales car. He pulled up.
Wood, was it an orange car? Never mind.
No,
was it orange? Was it orange Camaro? No.
Yeah, and he pulled in, and it's a retirement community. It's a 65 plus area. So, like, he's already pissed off like literally every single person in the neighborhood because they're looking at him like, oh, this is one of those young kids out, doing sideshows and streets and making loud noises. So like, you've already set yourself in a position where you've got to turn that sale completely around because the people are already looking at you like they don't want you here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So like your sale, you need to not offend people. And I know like we're in this society where like, everybody gets so offended, but like realistically, you're going into people's homes. They've never met you. Yeah, they never met you. They don't know anything about you. They're inviting you into their home or at least onto the property. So like they're already going to have a level of, I don't know what to expect from this person. Like you don't need to give them more reasons to not like you.
Don't give them reasons to hate them right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Todd's question is, Trevor, you mentioned stress level. I agree. It's important to be careful to not have the urge to overstep yourself. Thinking more about revenue will be brought in, which in turn increases the stress level. I've been blessed enough to be able to stick $100,000 to the side. Let's see. But his question is $100,000 for the next year. So just that alone is a stress reliever, but it's going to be hard for me to rely on a salesperson versus me as the owner to bring in the revenue. Have you ever been there yourself, Trevor, Ray, or Doug?
Let me take this the first stab at it. So, and again, remember that. So we're making 60% profit. Okay. Well, now we bring in, so that second truck that we bring in, and we've got to say, we're now not making 60% profit anymore. Really, all the trucks go down to 50% profit, possibly because of the salesperson that we bring in. The bigger we grow, the less profit we're probably going to make per truck. It's just a fact.
And I think the average is probably closer to 20-25%.
Right. No, I guarantee you it was 25% where we were at to 30% whenever we were at our largest. And every time we added a truck on, it was, one more oil change, one more set of brakes, one more mechanical stuff.
Now you got to hire a payroll company.
Right.
Now
you got to hire another crew to run those things. And yeah, exactly. Now you got to hire a payroll because now you got to have workers comp because you've got more than 4 employees,
Yeah, you got to hire an HR person. Right. You got to hire, a safety coordinator. Like these are all expenses that you don't even have to think about when you're a single operator where you're like, I'm working on the truck and I have a helper. Yep. Or I'm doing all of it myself.
Right. But, that's the other thing, though, Todd, that I'm going to be checking on my salesperson. And also, I know your business, Todd, is good enough, and you have such good interpersonal relationships with that. Because remember, when we hire a salesperson, we're not giving them their book of business. We're hiring our book of business. We're hopefully hiring that salesperson to bring on
a better
new revenue or to close stuff that we don't have time to get to. But let's figure that $500,000 that you're doing, you're not necessarily paying that salesperson on that $500,000. Now, there may be some crossover on there, but that's still the $500,000 that you are generating as that business owner. Now, can we get that salesperson to generate us another $300,000 and do $800,000 for 2 trucks? Maybe so, and then it's worth it. But that's why you're also still, I don't believe in letting your salespeople just run rampant out there. I think you've got to have some controls and checks and balances. And like you said earlier, some, what's the word I was looking for? Production standards, some requirements.
Well, and going with what Power Washer Mitch is saying. So in my opinion, sales people are a walking show booth. They need the swag. They need the clothes, pens, caps, hats, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget, y'all, they also need the CRM. Okay. The CRM is what's going to help them to keep up with their pipeline, create their pipeline. And with that CRM, it also helps you stay in track of whatever it is they're doing. You can go into the CRM and see what it is that they're doing and keep track of what they're doing. And I know that I touched on it briefly before, but I want to finish. I want to drive another point to it. And that is, don't cap your salespeople. I think that's one of the worst
Oh,
things that the companies do is they cap it. Well, dude, you're making too much money. We got to bring you down, or we got to put a $10,000 a week cap on you or something like that. No, increase your production staff. Increase your staff to be able to keep up with that horse. If that horse wants to run it hard and he's selling, he's doing right, morally, ethically, all that kind of stuff, making a good sale, why cap them?
If that horse wants to run hard, you need to buy a better saddle.
That's it. Learn to ride bareback, one or the other.
Bingo.
Yeah, because there's also a thing about with the CRM, making sure that your salesperson knows the difference between persistence and annoyance. Okay, when you get to a certain, you want your sales people to be persistent, to be following up, to be building those relationships, but you don't want them to start annoying the customers. They need to learn that skill if they don't already have it.
Yeah. To the part where he asked about hard for me to rely. It's hard. Yeah, it's difficult to let go of the control of something. That was my biggest issue, was just being okay with the fact that you're going to put something in place that's not going to do the job as well as you do. And you have to be okay with that.
They might do it better.
It's possible. I mean,
it's not.
Well, it depends on the person, like you as an individual. If you're, and there's guys out there that I've met at conventions where they're like, I'm really good at the work. I know the technical side. Like I can go out there and I'm a rock star on site. I know what I'm talking about, but I can't sell for the life of me. And there's a lot of people like that, and it's fine. Okay, like you're gonna find somebody that's better than you in sales, hopefully, if you're terrible at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like us as business owners, I mean, guys that are the guys that are on every job, if you have technicians working for you, but I talk to guys all the time. Well, I can't give up control. I can't give up control. So are you saying you're the best guy in the world to push that surface cleaner around?
Exactly.
You're probably not, but again, I'm never going to be judgy about that, because that's this industry right here. I mean, you can be successful however you want to be in this industry. You can be successful with one truck as a single owner operator. You can be successful as a 5 truck guy. I mean, you can do it however you want to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, my big motivation to find a salesperson was mostly to take over residential, so I could fixate more of my time on commercial and industrial stuff.
Yeah.
And to grow, to grow that side, but also to diversify your work, and that's something that I think a lot of guys just really aren't doing. And I think that COVID is one of the things that really shined a light on how stupid that is. Like in our area, when COVID hit, there's a lot of guys that were doing pretty well that were one-trick ponies. They were like, we only do restaurants. We only do this.
Well, Eric's real upfront about, his struggles that he had. So in Orange County, whenever, they shut down all the restaurants in LA, Eric Tower got his butt handed to him for a year.
Yeah. And that happened to a lot of people where they were like, hey, we're just doing restaurants. That's our thing. We've got 100% of our business into this one thing. And then they were thinking, like, what's going to happen? Like every restaurant in the nation is going to shut down. Like, how could that ever happen? And then it happened. And then it happened. I mean, I
was going to say, look at, so that first year in 2020, and we were doing telecommuting and telework, a lot of guys who were doing residential, their business was off the chain. And like for me personally, in 2020, we were down, I think we decided like 10-15% that year. We went from the million down to 850. And it was our commercial that got kicked in the teeth. Florida State shut down. The hospital shut down. I mean, our largest commercial accounts were all off that year. Then in 2022 now, they have come back with a vengeance. And the guys that I know that are really the big time residential specialists, they're calling me and saying, Ray, I am dying. But the commercial stuff has just gone off the chain out there. And I mean, and for 2021, the latter part of 2021 and in 2022, my company, the Spray Wash, and then resulting like that will be well above that $1 million level. And it's mainly on commercial industrial site because there is so much money floating around out there on the commercial end.
Yeah,
I want to address this thing by Todd real quick. Todd was saying it's just a pivotal time for me, and I'm on the fence about the next step in regards to a salesperson. So, Todd, with all the podcasts and things we do, and the comments you make, and all that, dude, you're super smart. I know that you know what the right thing for yourself to do is, and how to do and what to do. And anything we can do to help you along that lines and in that step, because I know that a lot of the guys that are out there, you make a lot of the good comments and I know you're one of those smart guys.
You're one of the smart ones, Todd. Absolutely.
And then you got guys that love to ride bareback.
And we follow that up with Mitch.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, guys, we're $1:45 into this now, so we probably need to start wrapping.
Yep.
Which obviously is something Mitch doesn't do.
Yeah. I'm yawning, and then I've got leg issues, so I had my leg up, and then I did this earlier, and you guys got to see my white knee.
Oh my God.
Oh, is that what that was?
That's what that was.
Sunglasses.
Yeah, really. And I was
guys, thank y'all very much, Trevor.
Is that I've got an issue with my legs, and really, I don't go outside in shorts much because I can't afford to get a burn on my legs because they won't heal. The skin won't heal. So, yeah, they're white, dude. They're white.
Yeah,
I mean, my arms stay pretty dark a lot of time, but my legs are white. I'm surprised I didn't shut down the internet when my knee came across.
I thought it was Casper like floating through the room. So,
well, my computer screen changed the lighting to try and counteract for the glare. So, I mean that tells you something.
Oh Lordy! Well, guys, thank y'all so much for spending
time with us for just a minute
whenever we end.
All right, yeah, I'll stick around.
All right, guys, thank y'all. See y'all
out there
next Monday.
Bye, everybody.